Life goals. Hey, this is Tuesday, January 9th, otherwise known as Inquiry Day. We all are excited about the fact that we got to turn our science projects in today, or happy to get to turn them in next class period, or however it works. So, anyway, back to here. We finished up NWEAs. We should have everyone done with that one. Book report book. We introduced that yesterday. You need to have your book chosen by Friday. Just have to be able to show it to me and you're good. If you wanted to get your book report returned to you and you're watching this at home, you're out of luck. Unless you can find a way to travel through time. This was your book report, so make sure you go there, take a look at it. You have the examples. You're going to be creating an awesome little thing. Looks like that. Yay! You can find examples on the website. Then NWA, no one cares. Your old table of contents, make sure you cross it out. Cross the outie, cross that out, and then have your new table of contents. All of your old blank page. Cross out all the old blank pages, those are dead to us, until you get to the last two. Then you cross out both of those pages, and then we take you into the third 9 weeks, where we get to put information in there. And we're going to put this as our entry for the third 9 weeks. Number one, today's date, Fable notes, as we're going to do some notes about Fable things.
What's a Fable boy?
Your notes do not have to look exactly like mine. I set mine up in a T-chart, like a little lefty with the headings and a little righty with the stuff that goes in there. It's what worked for me. As long as all this information goes from there into your eyeballs, out your arm, and onto your paper, I'm happy. However you want to arrange it, that's sort of up to you, and it's not going to bother me one way or the other. What we're going to get into are fables. And yeah, fables are things that you've been reading about since you were a kid. They're probably one of the first things you learned about. In theory, fables were one of the first types of stories that existed. Years and years ago, before we had school, and yes, there was a time before school, we called it the stupid time.
Or the young time.
During that time, we didn't actually have school. Kids just learned to grow up and be stupid. And it was just sort of the process of elimination by whoever was the least stupid got to grow up to be old. Those of you who were more stupider than the others, you got to grow up to be dead. And so as some of the older people became older, they would see kids running around doing stupid things, and they would try to stop them by telling them stories. They would see these kids running around hitting each other in the head with rocks, just going, thwack! What are you doing? The kid's like, we're playing a game called Roxy Headsy. And they're like, why are you doing that? Like, thwack! Because it's fun. Like, you just killed that kid. And like, he's not very good at playing. And so the old people would try to get them to stop. But knowing kids, they wouldn't just stop on their own. So the old people had to get creative. They go, hey, what if I tell you a story about why you shouldn't do it? And the kid's like, thwack! What do you mean? I'm like, well, put the rock down, and I'm going to tell you a story about the rhinoceros and the giraffe and why you shouldn't hit your friends in the head with rocks. The kid's like, oh, that sounds kind of fascinating. And they put the rock down, and the old people would tell them the story where you learn a lesson about the rhinoceros going around and hitting all his friends in the head with rocks because they could take it, they have big hard skulls, until he gets to the giraffe, and he's like, come here, giraffe friend. And the giraffe's like, yeah. He's like, whack, and the giraffe's like, and falls down dead. We're like, no, giraffe. And we learn that you should never hit your friends in the head with rocks because sometimes you can kill them. And the kid's like, oh my God, that story's the best. And that was how fables were born, or something really close to that. And that was fables. They were the very early versions of school. So now, we're going to introduce you to fables, the very first early versions of school. Turns out, there are three types of fables we're going to get a chance to study. The first type of fable is the one that's been around the longest, for thousands upon thousands of years. It was the very first fable that was created. It is called traditional. And the traditional fable is the one that 90% of you are familiar with. Sorry. Of all the fables you know, I'd say it's 90% of the fables that are out there. Almost every fable you've heard of was probably a traditional fable. Dealt with animals in the woods. They tried to teach you a lesson. It wasn't very long. Made you a better person at the end of it. Stuff like that. But Mr. Brovicast, I've never heard a fable before. You're in luck. I'm getting ready to tell you a fable. Is it better than the rhinoceros and the giraffe? So much better than the rhinoceros and the giraffe. It's one called The Tortoise and the Hare.
Oh.
I'm excited too. Terhune!
Is the boy who cried wolf one?
It is. That is also a fable. Well done, you. So, The Tortoise and the Hare, there's a good chance it's one that you've heard before, which is absolutely fine. Most of these are fables that you've probably heard in one form or another over the years. The joy of fables, though, is because of this thing called oral tradition. They change over time. So you can have multiple versions of the same story. What I'm now going to get a chance to entertain you with is my version of the tortoise and the hare. So this way you know how a traditional fable works. The traditional fable takes place in the wood with animals, stuff like that. So we're going to have our tortoise, otherwise called a tortle, because it's like a turtle and a tortoise combined. Our tortle was walking through the woods, and he thought he was all super duper fast, as tortoises like to do. And he said, I'm going to run from one side of the woods to the other as quickly as I can, and I'm going to blow all these other animals away because I am such a speedy little critter. And he takes off going, turtle, 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 running as fast as a little turtle butt can take him. And as he goes running along, not paying attention to anything, he's like, get out of my way, I'm trucking along. And they're like, you're not even moving. And eventually, he comes across this small, furry ball sitting in the middle of the road. He's like, I'm going too fast to get out of the way. And he just runs right into this furry ball. Kabumpity bump. And the furry ball jumps up, and it's a rabbit. And the rabbit goes, yo, I'm sorry, old traditional, hey, young turtle, why would you run into me? Quote he. And he says, because I was running so fast, I couldn't get out of the way, and you were still there, so I had to run you over. The rabbit's like, you didn't run me over, you just bumped into me, and you're not very fast, you're a turtle. And the turtle goes, hey, I'm super fast, I could beat you from here to the other end of the forest. The rabbit goes, no, you couldn't. And the turtle goes, yes, I could. So they decide to have a race. So they call over their friend, the owl. They go, hey, owl, come over here and help us with this race. And the owl goes, whoo! And they go, you, come help us with the race. Classic owl humor. And then the owl comes over and lands. He goes, all right, I'm going to have you guys race from here. And he lifts out his little owl foot, scrapes the little thing on the ground. From here to the edge of the forest, whoever wins becomes the champion. Ready, set, go. And they both take off running as fast as they can. And the turtle's like, I'm so fast! And opens his eyes. He's like, oh, there's the finish line. Oh, sorry, starting line. I got him confused. And the rabbit takes off. Dust comes flying up around him. Gets halfway across the forest. Turns around. Still sees the turtle just turtling along. And says, you know what? That turtle was a little sassy earlier. I think it's time to teach that turtle a lesson. I'm going to lay down, take a nap right here in the middle. And then I'm going to wake up and still finish the race in front of him, and we're going to teach that turtle he's not nearly as fast as he thinks he is. So the rabbit lays down and just starts taking a nap. And the turtle keeps on going. He's like, I'm going so fast. And he sees the rabbit laying in the middle of the road. He's like, I'm never going to be able to turn in time. I better start early. So he manages to make it. He's like, turning, 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 turning. Barely manages to make it around the rabbit. He's like, turning like a Porsche. Turning, turning, turning. And gets back onto the road and then keeps right on going. Manages to not bump into the rabbit this time. And he's like, fine handling skills. And gets almost to the finish line when the rabbit wakes up, stretches, like, oh, where's that turtle now? And the turtle's gone. He's like, oh my goodness, the turtle turned invisible. What am I? Oh no, he's just right over there. He turns around and he sees the fact that the turtle's almost at the finish line, and the rabbit takes off running as fast as he can. He's like, oh no, I've made poor choices. I waited till the last night to do my inquiry project. No! And he tries to run and jump across and goes sliding and puts his little ears out and slides. And right as he gets to the finish line, the turtle just goes, blurp, and puts his head out and beats the rabbit and wins. And it turns out our rabbit and our turtle have learned a valuable lesson. And the lesson they have learned is...
They're idiots. I mean,
Don't be cocky.
And that's the joy of fables, is that there's so many things you can learn from them. Did you learn never get sassy with turtles? No. Did you learn you should not sleep on a racetrack? No. Did you learn that slow and steady wins the race? Yes. Why? I have no idea. And so it's the same idea. That's the moral you're supposed to get from it is to take your time, and slow and steady wins the race. The problem is, with that particular fable, I've never really seen how they're supposed to match up because the rabbit takes a nap, and that's like, you just didn't really want to. So that's our example of a traditional fable. Classic. Next up, we're going to take a look at a thing called a verse fable. Not a verses fable. That's where you get to fight somebody. You're like, oh, McGregor, I'm going to get into boxing. And you're going to try something like that. That's verses, which is different. A verse fable, V-E-R-S-E, is a whole different thing. Though, you guys know what a verse is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It does come from a song. If you take a song and write down all the lyrics and remove the music, what is a song?
a song.
Lyrics.
Bunch of verses.
Verses.
What's a verse? It's a bunch of lines that rhyme. Good job.
Oh, man.
If only we had studied this at one point.
Poetry.
It's a poem. Nicely. So a verse fable is when you write your fable out as a poem, where it gets all rhymey and has written in stanzas and stuff like that. It's essentially very similar to traditional, just with more rhymey bits in it. Why, yes, we are going to experience a verse fable. Why, no, I don't have one written out. We're just going to go off my brain and see how it goes, much like the last one. Mr. Brovie, heck, I'm scared. Wait till you hear it. All right, so we're going to try and focus similar to the last one. The worst part is I've now done this like 5 times today because I keep doing the same fable, and I still can't remember what I did earlier. So, new rhymes. See, one day there was a turtle and a hare, and the turtle said, let's race because I don't care. We're going to race from here to there. I'm on fire. And whoever doesn't win is a loser.
No, you have to do it fair and square.
Oh, I like, yes, and we're going to race all fair and square.
Boom.
Partway through, the rabbit took a nap, and the turtle said, that's fine, because my favorite music is rap. And then the turtle got to the finish line first, and all of the rabbit's hopes were burst.
No, all the rabbits said curse.
And then the rabbit began to curse. And the rabbit learned slow and steady wins the race. And he said, next time I should not sleep on my face. High five.
I can't believe the best one.
Great.
I wish I could tell you that was the same version I've said all day, but for some reason they go in different directions every time I do that one. So much fun. Hold on.
Was that your inquiry project?
No. My question is, can I butcher a poem in front of children? Yes. Next up, modern. This is our final of the 3 types called a modern fable. Those of you who watch television and know what a family is, hopefully know what modern means. That's a television reference. What does modern mean? To help you out, because this was Inquiry Project Day, I'm going to introduce you to a scientific term. Those of you who have science next period and want to sort of show off to your teacher, you can work this into your speech and show off and look even better. It's called today-y. And so a modern fable uses today-y stuff. So when you're giving your science presentation and you bust out, but then you can tell every time that you put the Mentos in Pepsi, today things will happen. The kids will be like, nailed it! And you'll be on fuego. Which is another scientific term for me no speaky Spanish. Yes.
So, is it like modern houses where it's all boxy?
Something like that. So a modern fable is different than traditional in the fact that it is going to be set during current times. So we're going to give you an example of a modern fable, much like our previous ones, but this one's going to be retold. We're going to do the tortoise and the hare as a modern fable. Modern ones means it takes place at a school. You can have cell phones and cars. You're not just like animals in the woods and stuff like that. So now, our turtle is on the chess team at school, and he's going down the hallway, not paying any attention to anybody while he's reading his Harry Potter book, because Harry Potter's the bomb, and he bumps into the hare, who's talking with all of his other rabbit friends, and the hare's like, what? It throws the turtle against the locker, and he's like, he says, no, Jesus, I have no beard, just hair around my face, it's okay, 'cause I'm a rabbit. And the turtle bounces off the locker, he's like, I got a shell! He's like, it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm on my way to PE, because turtles rock at PE, because we're the fastest land animals. And the rabbit's like, say what now? He goes, how about, sassy little turtle man, you and I race after school, and if you're faster than me, you can post a picture of me to Instagram, and you can make fun of me on there. And the turtle's like, I would never bully people because I care about everybody. But I agree anyway. High five. And so they decide after school they're going to go out to the track. And so they invite all their friends, the kangaroos and the elephants and the antelopes, because everyone loves antelopes. And they all head out to the track. And they get out to the little circle, and the owl shows up again. They're like, Al, we want you to help us with the race. And Al goes, who? And they're like, it never gets old. And the owl lands. He goes, all right, we're going to do one lap around the track. Whoever finishes this line first wins. And the owl goes, go! And they both take off running. The turtle's like, I know the hypotenuse of a triangle is like a circle squared going around mathwords. I have no idea. And the turtle takes off doing this little mathy run around there. And the rabbit's like, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. And then halfway around, he sees all of the squirrel cheerleaders. He's like, how you doing? And goes over and starts talking to the squirrel cheerleaders, like, flippy tail, flippy tail, flippy tail. And they're like, sitting there talking. And he's like, what are you doing tomorrow? And they're like, I'm chasing a bunch of trees. And so the turtle just keeps on going around. And he's like, Pythagorean theorem. And a squared, b squared equals circles. And then keeps math. And then keeps going around from there. And then all of a sudden, the cheerleader's like, I think you're going to lose. And the rabbit's like, I could never lose. Like, well, here's a cheer for you. Who's going to lose? It's you. And he's like, no! And the rabbit takes off running as fast as little paws will take him. And he gets around and he's like, I'm going to beat you. And the turtle's like, no. And the turtle takes out his cell phone as fast as he can. As he keeps running and he steps across the finish line as this rabbit slides across. And the turtle takes a picture of him and posts it to Instagram with fire on top of the rabbit. And it's like, you've been burned, Joe! And all of a sudden, this is when our turtle realizes slow and steady wins the race. And you should never bully people because then the turtle gets kicked out of school and loses his Harvard scholarship. Or something like that. That would be a modern version of the fairy fable. Nailed it.
Snailed it.
Hold on.
Are newborn babies technically modern?
Sure. Terhune.
Does the modern fable, does it have to be like a variation of another?
No. You can retell a whole new one. I was just trying to stick with the same one and do different versions of it. Yeah, you can do a whole different one. That's fine. Hey, Anna.
Do fables have to have animals in them?
That's a good question. If only we had more learning to help us
Darn
learn
it.
No.
I keep learning.
The most important thing in order for this to work out, though, is every fable has to have one of these. If it doesn't have one of these, it's just an old creepy guy telling you a story. Like in the van? No, that's a whole different issue. This is more like a grandparent who just keeps babbling at you or something like that. So if it's not learning, if you're not getting a lesson from it, then it does not count as a fable. By the way, what is a moral? It's a lesson. Any number of things. Lesson learned. I've heard kids say theme, which is kind of what it is, but the moral is more your takeaway from it, where it's supposed to make you a better person. Because fables were originally set up as a school. This was your way of learning how to not hit your friends in the head with a rock. So the moral should be a lesson learned, like don't hit your friends in the head with a rock. It could be advice, like you should never poke angry people in the stomach with a stick. It can be an observation on human nature. Cheerleaders like to jump around a lot, or whatever your particular thing might be. So that's the moral you're going to take away from it. As these old people began telling the stories to kids to try and educate them, they realized there were certain things that the fables had to have in order to work well. If they didn't have these certain characteristics, kids would not pay attention to the fable and they were not as effective. So there's 5 key things we have to have for a fable to work. The most important one, so that you can tell the difference between a person trying to make you smarter and a creepy guy in a van, is every fable has to have
Lesson.
what's the lesson called?
Moral.
Way to tag in. If it doesn't have a moral, it's not a fable. It's just a creepy guy with candy in a van trying to tell you stories. But I learned not to get in a van. Yeah, that's a whole different issue that we're not going to get into. So first off, you're going to have to teach us something. If you're not teaching us something, it does not work. The second most important one that we're going to get into is it turns out that kids don't just listen to every story. Sometimes old people like to babble. Like in this class? Ow. And so in order to make sure kids pay attention to the whole story, there's certain characters that kids like more than others. Disney has made bajillions of dollars learning this same lesson because they use the same type of characters in most of their movies. Because if I'm going to tell a story to kids, I can't say, hey, you shouldn't hit your friends in the head with rocks. Listen to this story about my old friend Bobby, who's 80, and his friend Jimmy, as they go waddling around with walkers. And kids go, I'm already not interested, kind of not paying attention, going to hit my friend in the head with a rock. So instead, we're going to say, hey, would you like to hear the story about a water buffalo and a monkey? And the kid's like, I'm intrigued already. You're like, I know. All I did was turn Bobby into a water buffalo. So the type of characters we should have are?
Animals.
Animals work the best. Every once in a while we can throw humans in, but 99% of them are going to have animals as the main characters because kids love animals. Sometimes you can throw a little kid into your story because little kids also like to know about little kids too. But if all of it is like an old person talking to an old person, you've already lost it. The third one, once we have the kids interested, and we know we're going to teach them something, and we have the fact that we're going to be using animals, I want kids to pay attention to my story all the way to the end, in order to get to the learning bits. So in order for that to happen, how long should our story be?
Short.
Unlike all of your stories? Ouch, again. But yes, again, they should be brief or short. If I tell a kid, hey, let's have you learn how to write your homework on the left-hand side of your notebook because the right-hand side is for bell work, you'd have to then redo everything and make yourself all sad. Left-hand side, that's the right-hand side. I'm just trying to...
It's not the left-hand side.
Just trying to help you out. And so, if you want kids to, let's tell you the story about the young chipmunk and the sides of paper. Best fable ever. If you want kids to pay attention to the whole story and get to the end, you want to make sure that it's nice and short. Fables should be a couple paragraphs in length. You should be able to tell an entire fable in just a couple minutes. You can't say, I'm going to teach you how to not hit your friends when they have the rock. You got 2 hours? Sit down and buckle up. Here we go. It's not going to work nearly as well.
Wait, what?
Number 4, if you want kids to enjoy the story, yeah, that would be bell work also.
Yeah.
That's homework.
Then I've been doing that the entire time.
Yeah, those are bell works. This is a homework that we're doing.
Oh!
You would know this because I trickily put homework in big red letters. And then the chipmunk had to figure out which side of the paper it was. Chipper, 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 the chipmunk said. Number 4. Learning is the best. If you want kids to enjoy your fable and remember it, you have to have a certain tone to it. You don't want to depress the kids and make them cry. And start off with,
That's my
one
life's
day,
goal.
there was a raccoon had a debilitating illness. Today, some of his fur fell out a little more. Like, oh, does this get any better? Well, he dies at the end. Like, oh God, no. So
That's
you
you.
want instead have uplifting and happy, humorous, funny, and
Oh, the
happy.
Brovicast.
Best.
Now, given. Does that mean we can't have any death in fables? Oh God, no. Things can die. That's fine.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure they're uplifting, happy, fun deaths. Is that possible? Well, yeah. You have like the bully die or something like that. Just try not to lead into it like a debilitating disease, but you can still kill things. Just make us smile while they die. That sounds like there's a skill involved. Basically, there is. And then the last one, number 5. Once they started telling these stories and kids were learning from them, it turns out they were not the only ones. Yeah, careful if you don't lean back on the chair, they'll break on you. You could have died. 4 kids died last year from it.
Jesus.
Wait, what?
No, still not Jesus. Just very. The last one is when you have kids who started learning from this, we discovered that kids were not the only ones who needed educated. Turns out, stupidity does not stop when you're young. Stupidity for some people is a lifelong goal.
Yes!
So because of that, it needs to be aimed at people of all ages, not just little children, but everybody should be able to enjoy a fable. If it's just aimed at little kids, well then we would never have a good YouTube channel. Because YouTube is like a documentary for stupid people. Hey Bobby, watch me do this! And then you put it on YouTube, like, yeah, that guy's dead. And so that's sort of how things happen.
Did you just rip?
No, it was just his mouth. It's okay. It was not me.
Oh my God.
Then, that gets us through the first part of our notes. We have more coming tomorrow, but we'll get there and stuff from there. What I'm going to have you do now, take writing utensil, put it in notebook, close notebook around writing utensil, or hide it in your kangaroo pocket. That's also adorable. We're going to see what information has remained in your brain. We're going to do a quick little review to see what's there. As an example from there, whole, we started getting into fables. How many different types of fables exist?
3.
See, don't you take his answer. You have to give it to him. Gurks, we started talking about the different types of fables that were out there. One of them has been around the longest, forever and ever and ever, and that is the... Well done. We have the traditional fable from there. Girl who slowly keeps trying to scoop seats forward to see if I'm paying attention. There is the second type of fable called a verse fable. And how is a verse fable written?
set up to rhyme.
Nicely done. Poetry, so that it rhymes. And then Jonathan, our third one, was modern, which uses a very scientific terminology. Because how do we? What's that?
Today.
I hope to hear it comes up in science. Today, well done. Let's see, and then from the ABO, we also learned that in order to separate our stories for kids versus creepy old men in vans, what is it our fables have to possess? The most important thing every fable has? Nicely done. We have a moral. Beaverson, what is a moral? This is this important thing that every fable has to have.
It's a belt.
Nicely done. Tomorrow, we're going to pick up on all this again and go a bit deeper and further.
We think our fables. We think our fables.